All right, gang, we are getting corroboration that Kash Patel will indeed be confirmed by the Senate as the next FBI director. Politico has just reported as of this morning that Susan Collins of Maine is pretty much on board here. She's been quoted as saying that she's not as familiar with Kash as she would like to be, but thus far, from what she does know of him, she's very impressed with his qualifications, which are quite stellar. We talked about this in our video yesterday. He was a public defender. He was a senior intelligence advisor to the president. He was chief of staff at the Department of Defense. Kash was the deputy director of national intelligence under the leadership of Devin Nunes. I mean, Kash is a first-rate pick for Trump. And, of course, he is a vicious, absolutely vicious enemy and despiser of the deep state.
What the deep state uses the most to cover up their corruption is an illegal application of the classification system. Remember the Lovebirds text from, this is a beauty, the Lovebirds text from FBI, DOJ land, Russiagate, Strzok and Page were texting each other. They were running the Russiagate investigation against Trump. They were the head of the counterintelligence unit at the FBI, and they're having an extramarital affair together. Can't make this stuff up. They're sending each other texts about how much they hate Trump and are going to create an insurance policy to stop Trump. Then we finally find those text messages. You know what the FBI and DOJ do for like a year? Redact them to congressional investigators and congressional men and women running the oversight of their agency. That's just one example. But it gets even better. Here's the deep state full circle. Just last week, do you know what Strzok and Page received from the Department of Justice?
What?
A $1.5 million payout to settle a lawsuit that Strzok and Page brought for the improper disclosure of their personal text messages on FBI phones. And the DOJ just rewarded them. They broke the law. They broke the chain of command. They broke every regulation there is in the FBI. They weaponized the system of justice against a political target they hated. We found those text messages, and we got them declassified finally in full when I became Deputy Director of National Intelligence.
Now, what Kash is referring to there are the text messages that were sent back and forth between the now disgraced FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, who were having an affair together at the time. And these text messages revealed that FBI agents were spying on Trump when he was a candidate back in 2016 as an insurance policy just in case Trump ended up winning the election. So, in other words, they were concerned that if Trump won the election, he would have access to all of this intelligence, and he would have access to the Hillary Clinton obstruction of justice investigation, which was a farce, right? That was in response to her getting caught deliberately deleting subpoenaed emails from her private server that was, of course, hacked by foreign nationals. That investigation was overseen by both James Comey, the FBI director at the time, and then this FBI freak, Peter Strzok. And we now know they had exonerated Hillary Clinton even before the investigation began. Again, we know this because records show that Comey had already written up an exoneration of Hillary before he ever interviewed her. So Comey and Strzok perpetuated a sham investigation, and as part of an insurance policy against that being exposed in case that Trump won the election, they decided to make Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, into a target using the phony Russian dossier bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign. They framed Flynn as a possible Russian agent and then turned him into a target of this rogue investigation, which meant that anyone Flynn came into contact with could be incidentally drawn in and implicated in connection with foreign intelligence because Flynn is now supposedly an agent of Russia. And this way, they thought they could ultimately implicate Trump through this hoax that they knowingly perpetrated. And so this is why it was so important to get Flynn, unmasked, as it were, exposed, because by revealing Flynn as a supposed Russian agent, then top officials in the United States government could reveal others in his inner circle who were apparently caught up in this whole fabricated Russian attempt to infiltrate our government. And the ultimate prize in all that, of course, would be Trump. So the whole Russian collusion hoax was a scheme to keep Trump from being able to investigate the FBI, and particularly in terms of how they handled their sham investigation of Hillary Clinton, as well as the surveillance of Trump's campaign. And Kash Patel is Devin Nunes' right-hand man in the National Intelligence Department. Kash Patel was in charge of investigating and uncovering all of this insanity in Trump's first term. But little did he know that what he discovered was just the tip of the iceberg. It's what he discovered next that was the most shocking. But first, gang, each one of us, all of us, have an opportunity to finally stop big tech and government overreach. Patriots are, as we speak, reclaiming our privacy. And you have no better way of protecting yourself than with SLNT. That's short for silent. Silent's Faraday products block all incoming and outgoing signals so no one can get their hands on your information. From key FOBs to phones and laptops, simply place your device inside, close the sleeve, and that's it. You're off the grid and safeguarded from unauthorized access. Go silent today by clicking on that link below or going to slnt.com/Turley to save 15% plus free shipping on all qualifying orders. Stay ahead of what's coming and secure your privacy today. Again, that's slnt.com/Turley for 15% off and free shipping on all qualified orders. slnt.com/Turley. The most shocking discovery that Kash Patel found in his investigations was that the entrapment of General Mike Flynn was actually a pervasive pattern, a common practice that had infested the culture inside the FBI. One of the more nefarious developments within the FBI is how their promotion practices, in terms of how you went up the ranks, as it were, actually encouraged agents to entrap victims and fabricate crimes. So really, in the end, the only way for agents to advance through the hierarchy of the bureaucracy is to lead successful investigations and busts. And agents quickly found that the easiest, fastest way to do that was to concoct and entrap victims like General Mike Flynn or some of the J6 protesters. So the FBI is actually encouraged to entrap American citizens who are just basically going about their business. So this is the stuff that Kash discovered in his investigation of the FBI as the Deputy Intelligence Director. And that is exactly what he plans to crush as the new FBI director. Basically, Kash, as I understand it, has three major goals as FBI director. First and foremost, there is the geographic relocation of the FBI itself, which Kash sees as essential for changing the culture within the agency. Check it out.
The FBI's footprint has gotten so freaking big, and the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for their next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government.
So that's the first order of business. Change the location of the agency, relocate it, most likely into the heart of a solid red state like Arkansas, and thereby change the culture, the ethos of the agency to reflect more red state values. Secondly, There's breaking and distributing their concentrated power. Again, we talked about this yesterday. So that would involve breaking up some of the agencies, outsourcing them to other investigative bodies throughout the federal government, such as Homeland Security and the Treasury Department. They have an investigatory division. There's the possibility of breaking up the FBI into 4 or 5 different agencies, independent agencies, with one responsible for counterintelligence, one for counterterrorism, one for complex white-collar crime, one for cyber crimes, and the like. And then thirdly, there's the essential component of transparency and declassification. Kash has promised to establish a 24/7 declassification office. This would involve releasing the files on things like the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, aiming for greater transparency in government operations, but also exposing the FBI's history as an agent of the deep state.
Anyway, the other thing that I put in the book that I recommended the boss to do hits on this. We need a 24/7 declassification office.
Yes. Rolling
papers out 24/7. And not just like JFK and not just 9/11. You're talking to the guy that's read the whole 9/11 report and those 7 pages that people talk about. But I believe, as like the guy who is an intel guy who believes wholeheartedly in the classified system of information, I believe that it has been over-abused by these corrupt officials in government to hide the truth and enact more corrupt activities. So what I told the boss was like, I don't care what you call it, truth and reconciliation, whatever, come up with a better name. But every agency and department literally submits all of their documentation. And I believe you could get half out. Half. I still think the other half needs to remain classified. I'll always argue that it does serve a purpose. But like you're seeing in these documents in the Jack Smith case, they're just redacting stuff that they lied about, that they broke the law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's used to protect themselves.
And it's a public document in federal court, which is a document for the people of the United States. And we can have you run that office. You can come in and just be like, hey, I want all the Saudi documents.
I'll gladly do that. I'd be so happy.
So Luke will be the press secretary for the Libertarian Party.
The declassifying
the
documenter.
Viceroy of declassification.
Absolutely. I like that.
There you go.
I'm in. You got. Where do I sign up?
Yeah. But I think that's how you earn the respect. Like you said, Donald Trump started talking about these things. Then we started putting these documents out there. And remember when I ran Russiagate, right? They came after me and said, if you put out the Nunes memo and you put this out that you wrote, our enemies and our allies are going to get murdered. No one died.
So that would be huge, obviously. Absolutely huge in taking down the deep state, exposing the various ways in which the deep state has undermined the democratic integrity of our republic, right? I mean, darkness hates light, and Kash would, in effect, be shining that light 24/7 on the agency. And with news that Senator Susan Collins looked like she's all in here, we don't just have a new FBI director, gang. We've got the end of the old deep state.